Feminist philosophy is a rich and multifaceted domain that interrogates the intersections of gender, power, and equality. It examines how societal structures, cultural narratives, and political institutions shape and are shaped by gender dynamics. Emerging from the broader feminist movement, feminist philosophy challenges traditional philosophical paradigms, advocating for the recognition and dismantling of patriarchal systems that perpetuate gender inequality. The roots of feminist philosophy can be traced back to early feminist thinkers like Mary Wollstonecraft, who, in her seminal work A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, 1792, argued for women's education and equality. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw the suffragette movement, with figures like Susan B. Anthony and Emmeline Pankhurst fighting for women's right to vote. These early efforts laid the groundwork for contemporary feminist thought, which gained momentum in the 1960s and 1970s during the second wave of feminism. Second-wave feminism expanded the scope of feminist concerns beyond legal rights to issues such as sexuality, family, workplace dynamics, and reproductive rights. Thinkers like Simone de Beauvoir, with her groundbreaking book The Second Sex, 1949, highlighted the pervasive nature of women's oppression and the societal construction of gender roles. De Beauvoir's assertion that one is not born, but rather becomes, a woman underscored the idea that gender is a social construct, not a biological destiny. One of the central tenets of feminist philosophy is the notion that gender is a social construct. This idea challenges the biological determinism that traditionally underpins gender roles. Feminists argue that society, through its institutions and cultural norms, constructs and enforces expectations about what it means to be male or female. These expectations often limit individual freedom and perpetuate gender inequality. Judith Butler, a prominent figure in feminist philosophy, introduced the concept of gender performativity in her influential work Gender Trouble, 1990. Butler posits that gender is not an innate quality but rather an ongoing performance shaped by societal norms. This performativity framework allows for a more fluid understanding of gender, opening up possibilities for individuals to resist and redefine traditional gender roles. Power is a central theme in feminist philosophy, particularly the ways in which power is distributed and exercised within a patriarchal system. Patriarchy refers to a social system in which men hold primary power and dominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, and control over property. Feminist philosophers examine how patriarchy manifests in various aspects of life, from the family and workplace to politics and culture. Michel Foucault's theories on power and knowledge have been influential in feminist analyses of patriarchy. Foucault's idea that power is not merely repressive but also productive, shaping individuals' identities and realities, resonates with feminist critiques of how patriarchal power structures influence women's lives. Feminists argue that patriarchy not only oppresses women but also perpetuates harmful norms and values that constrain both women and men. Intersectionality, a concept coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, is a critical framework in feminist philosophy. It highlights how different aspects of identity, such as race, class, sexuality, and gender, intersect to produce unique experiences of oppression and privilege. Intersectionality challenges the notion of a universal female experience, emphasizing that women's experiences are diverse and shaped by multiple, overlapping social identities. For example, the experiences of a white, middle-class woman differ significantly from those of a black, working-class woman. Intersectional feminism seeks to address these differences, advocating for an inclusive approach that considers the varied and intersecting dimensions of identity. By doing so, it aims to create a more comprehensive understanding of inequality and to develop strategies for achieving justice that are inclusive of all women. Liberal feminism focuses on achieving gender equality through legal and political reforms. It advocates for equal opportunities, rights, and representation for women within the existing social and political frameworks. Key figures like Betty Friedan, whose book The Feminine Mystique, 1963, sparked the second-wave feminist movement in the United States, exemplify this approach. Liberal feminists work towards eliminating gender discrimination in areas such as employment, education, and politics, believing that systemic change can be achieved through legislation and policy reforms. Radical feminism takes a more critical stance, arguing that the root cause of women's oppression lies in the patriarchal system itself. Radical feminists contend that merely achieving legal equality is insufficient. Instead, they call for a fundamental restructuring of society to eradicate patriarchy. Influential radical feminists like Andrea Dworkin and Catherine McKinnon have focused on issues such as sexual violence, pornography, and the objectification of women. They argue that these phenomena are both symptoms and tools of patriarchal control, requiring a radical overhaul of societal norms and institutions. Socialist and Marxist feminisms link gender oppression to broader economic and class inequalities. These frameworks argue that capitalism inherently exploits and oppresses women, particularly through unpaid domestic labor and the commodification of women's bodies. Socialist feminists, like Nancy Fraser, advocate for a restructuring of both the economic and gender dimensions of society, aiming to address the intertwined nature of capitalism and patriarchy. They propose solutions that include not only gender equality but also economic redistribution and the dismantling of capitalist structures. Ecofeminism explores the connections between the oppression of women and the exploitation of the environment. Ecofeminists argue that patriarchal systems not only dominate women but also degrade the natural world. This framework emphasizes the importance of sustainability, environmental justice, and the interdependence of all living beings. Thinkers like Vandana Shiva and Carolyn Merchant highlight how colonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy collectively contribute to environmental degradation and social injustice. Ecofeminism calls for an integrated approach to social and environmental activism, advocating for the liberation of both women and the earth. Reproductive rights remain a central concern in feminist philosophy. Access to contraception, abortion, and comprehensive reproductive healthcare are crucial for women's autonomy and equality. Feminists argue that control over one's body is a fundamental right, essential for personal freedom and participation in society. Debates around reproductive rights often intersect with issues of race, class, and disability, as marginalized women frequently face additional barriers to accessing healthcare. Addressing sexual harassment and violence is a key area of feminist activism and theory. The #MeToo movement, which gained global prominence in 2017, brought widespread attention to the prevalence of sexual misconduct and the importance of believing and supporting survivors. Feminist philosophers analyze the cultural and structural factors that perpetuate sexual violence, advocating for systemic changes to prevent abuse and support survivors. The representation of women in media and popular culture is another significant area of feminist critique. Feminists examine how women are portrayed in films, television, advertising, and literature, arguing that these representations often reinforce harmful stereotypes and limit women's roles. Efforts to promote diverse and empowering representations of women aim to challenge these norms and expand the possibilities for women's identities and aspirations. The balance between work and family life is a critical issue in feminist philosophy. Traditional gender roles often place the burden of domestic labor and childcare on women, limiting their opportunities in the workforce. Feminists advocate for policies that support work-life balance, such as paid parental leave, affordable childcare, and flexible work arrangements. By addressing these issues, feminist philosophy seeks to create a more equitable division of labor and opportunities for both women and men. Transfeminism is a branch of feminist philosophy that focuses on the intersection of transgender and feminist issues. It argues for the inclusion of transgender people in feminist discourse and activism, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and respecting gender diversity. Transfeminists critique the exclusionary practices of some feminist groups, advocating for a more inclusive and intersectional approach to gender equality. Feminist philosophy is not monolithic, it encompasses a wide range of perspectives from different cultural and geographical contexts. Global feminisms highlight the diverse experiences and struggles of women around the world, emphasizing the importance of context-specific approaches to gender equality. Postcolonial feminism examines the impact of colonialism and imperialism on women in formerly colonized regions. It critiques the ways in which Western feminist frameworks can sometimes impose their own values and priorities, marginalizing the experiences and voices of women in the global South. Post-colonial feminists like Chandra Talpade Mohanty advocate for an inclusive and pluralistic feminism that recognizes the diversity of women's experiences and the legacies of colonialism. Indigenous feminism focuses on the unique struggles and perspectives of indigenous women. It addresses issues such as land rights, cultural preservation, and the impacts of settler colonialism. Indigenous feminists argue for the importance of decolonizing feminist thought and practice, recognizing the interconnectedness of gender, race, and sovereignty. African feminism encompasses a wide range of movements and perspectives from across the African continent. It addresses issues such as gender-based violence, economic empowerment, and political representation, often within the context of post-colonial states and ongoing struggles for development and human rights. African feminists like Nawal El-Saadawi and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie emphasize the importance of context-specific approaches and the inclusion of African women's voices in global feminist discourses. Feminist philosophy offers a powerful framework for understanding and challenging the structures of gender, power, and inequality. By interrogating the social constructions of gender, the dynamics of power within patriarchal systems, and the intersections of multiple identities, feminist philosophers provide crucial insights into the nature of oppression and the possibilities for liberation. As feminist thought continues to evolve, it remains committed to the pursuit of justice, equality, and the empowerment of all individuals, regardless of gender. Through ongoing activism, scholarship, and dialogue, feminist philosophy seeks to create a more equitable and inclusive world.